of the Council and members of the press and public, I welcome you to this meeting of the Council. Prior to this meeting, all participants have previously checked that they can be heard and seen and can see and hear other members. It is vital that you can be heard, and it is preferred that cameras are kept on throughout the meeting. To double check this and to introduce everyone who is present at this remote meeting, I would kindly ask that I confirm your attendance and your role or job title when I say your name. If you have a technical difficulty during the meeting, then please contact one of the Democratic Services officers on call who will attempt to assist you. I would ask all participants, when you are not speaking, please mute your microphone. This minimises background noise and will help everyone in listening to the proceedings. Microphones must only be on if the participant has been granted permission to speak. To gain my permission to speak, please very briefly indicate on the chat to the right side of the screen, and I will then make a note and go back to you once the person speaking before has finished. Please note this meeting is being live streamed for members of the public, except for any item of business where exempt or confidential information is considered, following an exclusion of the press and public from the meeting. This meeting is also being recorded and will be subsequently broadcast on the internet. Would everyone present please ensure that their mobile phones are turned to silent and they are not used to make or receive phone calls whilst the meeting is in progress. Do not turn your phone off, as it will make it harder for Democratic Services to contact you should they need to. Please also refrain from checking emails or conducting other business, and ensure that you are in a quiet room, free from distractions for the duration of the meeting. Moving straight on, councillors, to agenda item 1, apologies for absence. I have received apologies from councillors. Paul Moore, are there any other apologies this evening?
Councillor
yes, Chair.
Sorry,
apologies, Councillor Everett. Just noted apologies from Councillor Cupp this evening as well. Sorry.
Councillor Cupp, yes.
Also, Councillor Linda Potts, she has her work.
Linda Potts.
And Councillor Whitehead, Chair.
Councillor Whitehead. I have got that. Are there any other apologies?
Councillor Dennis, Chairman.
Councillor Dennis.
Chair, can I just point out there are a number of members and Mrs. Benedict who have still got their microphones on. If they could mute them, otherwise you get a lot of feedback.
This is true. Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Campbell. Yes, just to remind everyone, please, would you switch your microphones off unless I have asked you to speak? It is not possible for me to check everyone, but I'd ask for your assistance in this matter. Right. I'll move now to a register of attendees this evening. I shall move first of all to councillors. If you could indicate your presence this evening. First of all, Councillor Alban.
Here, Chair.
Councillor Ara.
Here, Chair.
Councillor Ashby.
Present, Chair.
Councillor Bailey.
Here, Chair.
Councillor Bambridge.
Here, Chair.
Councillor Jill Bayford.
Here, Chair.
Councillor Bob Bayford.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Boyd.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Braidwood. Councillor Braidwood.
He sent his apologies, Chair.
Right, apologies. Councillor Campbell.
Here, Chair.
Councillor Coleman Cook.
Here, Chair.
Councillor Crittenden.
Present, Chair.
Councillor Curry.
Present, Chair.
Councillor Day.
Here, Chair.
Councillor Dennis. I believe we've already had apologies. Councillor Dexter.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Duckworth.
Here, Chair.
Councillor Everett.
I'm here, Chair.
Councillor Farrance.
Present, Chair.
Councillor Fellows.
Yeah, I'm here, Chair.
Councillor Game.
Here, Chair.
Councillor Garner.
Here, Chair.
Councillor Green. Councillor Green? Are you there, Councillor Green? I'll move on. Councillor Gregory.
Here, Chair.
Councillor Hart.
Here, Chair.
Councillor Hopkinson.
Here, Chair.
Councillor Huxley.
Here, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Keane.
Here, Chair.
Councillor Cook has apologies. Councillor Pat Moore.
Here, Chair.
Councillor Paul Moore, I have apologies. Councillor Ovenden.
Here, Chair.
Councillor Parsons. Councillor Parsons.
He sent his apologies, Chair.
Apologies. Councillor Piper.
Here, Chair.
Councillor Stuart Piper.
Here, Chair.
Councillor Potts.
Sent her apologies, Chair.
That's right, yes. Chair, thank you for reminding me. Councillor Pugh.
Here, Chair.
Councillor Rattigan.
Here, Chair.
Councillor Rolfe.
Here, Chair.
Councillor Rogers.
Here, Chair.
Councillor Roper.
Here, Chair.
Councillor Rozecki.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor David Saunders.
Here, Chair.
Councillor Maeve Saunders.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Scobie.
Here, Chairman.
Councillor Scott. Councillor Scott. Are you there, Councillor Scott? I'll move on.
He's here, Chair. I think he's mobile. He might have communication issues.
But he is here. I'd like him to speak for himself if he could.
He's just put it in the chat, Chair.
All right, excellent. Councillor Shrub.
Here, Chair.
Councillor Taylor. Councillor Taylor. No, I'll move on. Councillor Tomlinson.
Here, Chairman.
Councillor Towning.
Present.
Councillor Whitehead, I have apologies for. Councillor Wing.
Here, Chair.
Councillor Wright.
Here, Chair.
Councillor Yates.
Here, Chair.
I'll move on to officers. Please confirm your job title. Madeline Homer.
Sorry, here, Chair. Chief Executive. Thank you.
Tim Howes.
Here, Chair. Director of Corporate Governance.
Gavin Waite.
Here, Chair. Corporate Director of Communities.
Tim Willis.
Here, Chair. Deputy Chief Executive and Section 151 Officer.
Nick Hughes. Nick
Present,
Hughes.
Chairman, Committee Services Manager.
Charlotte Crowley.
Present, Chair, as a Democratic Services Officer.
Charles Hungway.
I'm here, Chair, DSO on call.
Emily Kennedy.
Here, DSO, also on call.
Excellent. I understand there are several members of the public in this meeting who will have an opportunity to introduce themselves when it is their turn to speak. Is there anyone in this meeting whose name I have not read out? Now's your chance. No. Right, moving on. Please note this meeting is being live streamed for members of the public, except for any item of business where exempt or confidential information is considered following the exclusion of the press and public from the meeting. Now, having gone through all of that, moving on to agenda item 1, I've had apologies for absence from Councillors Cook, Potts, Whitehead, Dennis, and is that, yes, that's all, I think, isn't it? Agenda item 2, minutes of the meeting held on the 9th of July 2020. I move that the minutes of the meeting of the Council held on 9th of July 2020 be approved and signed as a correct record. Would the Vice Chairman please second?
I second that, Mr. Chairman.
Excellent. Unless anyone objects to the minutes, I will take them as agreed. Thank you. Agenda item 3, announcements. I do have an announcement. We are shortly to lose two popular and well-known members of our staff. Charlotte Crowley from Democratic Services and Enley Kennedy, well known from licensing. I'm sure councillors would want to wish them all the best with their future careers. Agenda item 4, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest this evening? I don't hear any and I see nothing on the screen. I'll move on therefore to agenda item 5, petitions this evening. Agenda item 5A, council response to the Park Avenue Broadstairs petition. For information only, would members please note an e-petition containing 319 valid signatures and a paper petition containing 455 valid signatures has been received by the council. Please note there will be an opportunity for members to discuss this matter further under agenda item 8A, which will be coming up later this evening. I'm pleased to welcome Mrs. Seuss on behalf of Mr. Tate to take the meeting. If you would like to turn your microphone on. Ms. Seuss, you have up to 3 minutes to introduce the petition. Are you there, Mrs. Seuss? Would you like to switch your microphone on? And then you'll be in a position to read to your petition. If you raise the screen at the bottom, you'll find a microphone that you can release to start speaking. Are you with us? Mr. Hughes, can you help us at this point?
I believe Mrs. Zeus is with us.
Okay.
There we are. Excellent stuff.
Yes.
She's now with us.
Excellent. Would you like to proceed, Mr. Zeus? You may start.
Okay, my name is Amanda Seuss. Thank you for the opportunity of introducing our petitions, which have been organised to bring the council's attention to the unwarranted devastation of an area of woodland at Park Avenue. We believe the council gave permission for one tree to be felled, yet more than 40 were taken down, leaving a totally derelict landscape. We seek the council to use its powers to have the area restored to its pre-devastation situation, with the trees replaced like for like and in the position of the felled trees. We also ask the council to reaffirm its view that the area should be retained as an open space woodland and to take action to deter others from having total disregard for the council's permissions and the environment. Anger, annoyance and frustration are felt by residents and users, not only at the devastation, but at the manner it was done. A hand-delivered letter from the landowner suggested health and safety work to trees, and the contractors entered the site the next day, leaving only a few trees standing at the perimeter. Councillors and officers were contacted. The response that it was being investigated, yet little enforcement action has been seen over the last 6 months. The strong feeling of so many people prompted 5 residents to form an informal group to make strong representation to the council. More than 50 people have joined the group, which suggests the possibility of such a group helping to maintain the area and neighbouring woodlands in good order, much like Mocket's would. Because of the lockdown, it's necessary to run an e-petition, which resulted in 319 signatures. As lockdown eased, we decided to attempt a paper petition, and after 3 days, we had 455 new signatures, confirmed as non-signatures of the e-petition. Together, there are in excess of 750 signatures. This should determine their progress through the council. The woodland in question is part of a large parcel of land that was sold in 1931 with a covenant that approximately 50% of the land should be kept as open space. Subsequent transfer of the part of the land was seen 75% of the area being housing developed. This leaves an undevelopment area which is now desiccated, which we now seek to retain as an open space. The council stated that when making tree preservation orders in 1985 and 2010, that the land, in view of its considerable amenity value, it is therefore considered expedient to take the necessary steps to ensure its preservation. Trees are such an important part of our existence, yes, yet greatly neglected. Stats from Friends of the Earth show that Thanet has one of the largest sparsities of trees in the country at 4.4%. During the COVID lockdown period, emphasis that has been placed upon the well-being of people, and now
Mrs. Seuss, can I ask you to wind up now, please?
Environment can combat several health issues. Finally, the council has
That's fine. Just finish
Did I
off
finish
now.
or
If
not? No.
you're winding up, that's good. Thank you.
Okay, finally, the council has declared a climate change emergency and is pursuing a strategy to improve our environment. Here we have an example of the action of a developer that takes no regard of that. You can now put this right by showing that it understands the impact to our environment and values it highly. On so many fronts, the council could be in a win-win situation here. Please ensure that this environmental devastation is not left unchallenged and that the developer is pursued, and that you affirm to the local plan review that the area must be left as an open space for the benefit of residents and council taxpayers.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Mrs. Zeus. Very well delivered. In accordance with the Council's petition scheme, the petition will be referred to Cabinet without debate for report to the Council within 3 ordinary meetings. Thank you very much indeed. I'm moving on now to agenda item 5B, Council response to bigger bins in Thanet. This again for information only. Would members please note an e-petition containing 42 valid signatures has been received by the Council. Unfortunately, we've had no response from the individual who created the petition. However, in accordance with the Council petition scheme, the petition will be referred to Cabinet without debate for report to the Council within 3 ordinary meetings. Therefore, moving on to agenda item 6, questions from the press and public. 6 questions have been received from members of the public in accordance with Council Procedure Rule number 13. Please note that only the questioner and respondent are permitted to speak on the question, and that if the questioner is not present at this meeting, their question cannot be put, but will be replied to in writing. Therefore, we're moving on to agenda item 6A, question number 1 from a member of the public regarding the coach house. I am pleased to introduce a question from Mrs. Iris Johnston. Mrs. Johnston has requested that her question be read by an officer. I therefore call upon the Committee Services Manager, Mr. Nicholas Hughes.
Thank you, Chairman. The question is as follows. The lease on the coach house in Northdown Park is due to end in 2021 after years of failure to reopen as a museum. Could the leader please confirm that the building will not be relet to the existing leaseholder who has failed to comply with the original agreement? End.
Thank you very much indeed, Nick. I call upon Councillor Duckworth to respond. Councillor Duckworth, are you there?
Yes. Thank you for your question, Iris. The relationship between the council and one of its tenants is confidential to the parties as well as being commercially sensitive. It is not appropriate to breach that confidentiality or publicly share commercially sensitive information. I'm therefore not able to respond. However, I do thank you for drawing my attention to this issue and will pass on your concerns to the Director of Property. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Duckworth. Agenda item 6B, question number 2 from a member of the public regarding destruction of woodland in Thanet. I am pleased to welcome Mrs. Paula Benedict to the meeting. Could the questioner please turn on their microphone and state the name of the Cabinet member to whom their question is to be put and read out the exact wording of the question that they have submitted to the Council. Mrs. Benedict, are you there?
Hello. To Councillor Rick Everett, what, if any, significant deterrents will the Council use in future to prevent landowners and developers' continued illegal destruction of open spaces and woodland in Thanet?
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Benedict. I call upon Councillor Everett to respond.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the question. The new local plan, which we adopted at our last council meeting and is now in force, contains a number of policies that seek to protect and enhance trees and woodland, particularly where development is proposed. These are Policy SP23, which states that development proposals should demonstrate how they respect and respond to the character, key sensitivities, qualities and guidelines of the relevant landscape character areas. The Landscape Character Assessment Supplementary Planning Document, which was adopted alongside the local plan, contains guidance about how new development can be incorporated into the wider landscape, including how existing features and new planting can assist that process. Policy SP27 addresses the green infrastructure network and identifies ways in which development can protect and contribute to that network. Policy SP30 sets out requirements for new development to make a positive contribution to the conservation, enhancement and management of biodiversity assets, resulting in a net gain for biodiversity. Policy GIO6 refers to landscaping and green infrastructure in new developments, and Policy QDO2 sets out how new development proposals should address existing landscape features. The Council investigates any breaches of planning control in relation to these policies and will take enforcement action where it is in the public interest. In addition to this, existing groups of trees or woodland can, where they are in conservation areas or of particular community value, be protected by tree preservation orders. The Council then has powers to enforce their protection, including prosecution against unauthorised removal under the Planning Act. Council officers often attend sites to require the cessation of works to protected trees upon receiving complaints from the public. For areas of woodland not protected, the Council liaises with the Forestry Commission if felling has occurred, as a licence may be required from the Commission. The Council would also work with Kent Police's Wildlife Liaison Officer, who would pursue any illegal destruction of protected species under the Wildlife and Countryside Act.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Everett. Moving on to agenda item 6C, question number 3 from a member of the public regarding a Thanet tree strategy. I'm pleased to welcome Mr. Tate to the meeting. Could the questioner please turn on their microphone and state the name of the cabinet member to whom the question is to be put and read out the exact wording of the question that they may be submitted to council. Mr. Tate, are you there?
Yes, Chairman, thank you. My question will be again to Councillor Everett as member responsible for trees. My question is, Thanet has relatively few trees, with only 19 mentions in the local plan. So will the council prepare a tree strategy aimed at increasing tree canopy cover in the district, maximising the benefit that trees give, promoting biodiversity, conserving tree and woodland ecosystem, as many other councils have done?
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Tate. I call upon Councillor Everett again to respond.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you once again for the question. I'm not sure that I'm the member responsible for trees, except as leader, perhaps I'm responsible for everything. I'm certainly responsible for planning. So my response is that I'm pleased to confirm the council is preparing a Thanet tree strategy. An outline draft strategy has been discussed at the Climate Emergency Working Party meeting in July and will be progressed forwards by our new climate change officer who started this week. We're also awaiting an update on the national tree strategy for England to help steer ours. And I just add really that I'm sure councillors across the council do understand the importance of improving the tree cover in Thanet. I'm grateful to the members of the public and others who brought these issues to our attention, particularly the issue in Broadstairs. I've already referred to the policies that are in the local plan. I don't see any purpose in me reading you the list of policies that I read to the previous questioner, but certainly they're all relevant. And I can assure you that this is a matter that we're taking very seriously. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Everett. Of course, you do realise as leader, you're taking responsibility for everything, aren't you?
Seems so.
Agenda item 6D, question number 4 from a member of the public regarding the climate emergency. I'm pleased to introduce a question from Mrs. Shotton. Mrs. Shotton has requested that her question is read by an officer. I therefore call once again upon Mr. Nicholas Hughes.
Thank you, Chairman. The question is as follows. The climate emergency is the biggest threat to mankind. The Council should be progressing and implementing the climate emergency action plan. Why is the Council wasting time and money on environmentally harmful plans at the port instead of investing in clean technologies to help meet this challenge?
Thank you once again, Nick. I call upon Councillor Duckworth to respond. Councillor Duckworth, are you there?
I am. Thank you for the question. Thanet District Council declared a climate emergency on Thursday, the 11th of July 2019. Since then, we have formed a working party consisting of elected members from across the political parties to consult, discuss and steer our response to the climate and ecological emergency. An action plan has been formulated to capture what work that is already underway alongside opportunities and ideas. Our new Climate Change Officer, Dr. Hannah Scott, started on 1st of September, and she will be driving the Council's response to the climate emergency moving forwards, coordinating and developing our action plan further. We are linked with other councils across the county through the Kent Resource Partnership and the Kent Climate Change Network, taking national and county steer on the approach through the Kent Environment Strategy and other developing directives. We will monitor plans in relation to developments and changes to legislation as they happen. We are also planning to set up opportunities in the coming months to engage with the public on our proposed activities. The reference in the question to plans at the port is understood to be in relation to berth 4 and 5 replacement project. The existing aggregate berth 4 and 5, at the port of Ramsgate is at the end of its operational life. There is no viable option to refurbish or maintain the existing berth. A long-term contractual commitment with a customer exists such that the Council must maintain an operational berth or risk the consequences of breaching the contract agreement. A project has therefore been developed to replace the berth. It is also worth mentioning that the requirement for an environmental impact assessment as part of the marine licensing process was screened out by the Marine Management Organisation. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Duckworth. Agenda item 6E, question number 5 from a member of the public regarding community woodland. I'm pleased to welcome Ms. Mackenzie to the meeting. Could the questioner please turn on their microphone and state the name of the Cabinet member to whom their question is to be put and read out the exact wording of the question that they submitted to the Council. Hi there, Ms. Mackenzie.
Thank you, Chair. My question is to Steve Olban, but I'm wondering whether I should have directed it to Rick Everett, actually. The 2006 adopted local plan set aside an area of land, roughly 21.7 hectares, behind 20 cottages on Chiltern Road extending to Hartsdown Road, Margate, for community woodland. Why has this land now been designated for housing with no planting having taken place in the subsequent 14 years? Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Ms. Mackenzie. Who's taking it? Is it once again you, Councillor Everett, or is it Councillor Alban?
No, it is me, Chair. It is me, Chair.
Well done.
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. The site proposed for a community woodland in the 2006 plan is situated to the north of the housing site allocated in the new local plan. It's not, in fact, the same site. Prior to the 2006 plan, there was a detailed project developed for planting of the community woodland. However, during the process of developing the scheme, the woodland grant scheme was amended such that the project was not eligible for funding. As a result, the project was not progressed at the time. The site was put into the local plan as a potential project to be supported.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Everett. Agenda item 6F, question number 6 from a member of the public regarding Ramsgate Port berth 4/5. I'm pleased to welcome Ms. Austin to the meeting. Could the questioner please turn on their microphone and state the name of the Cabinet member to whom their question is to be put and read out the exact wording of the question that they are submitting to the Council. Ms. Austin, are you there?
I am, thank you, Chair. My question, I believe, is to Councillor Olban. It's about Ramsgate Port. I understand Ramsgate Port berths 4 and 5 currently processing 400 tonnes of aggregate per hour, are to be replaced with a 3,000 tonnes per hour facility. Could you please explain why this is needed, what impact it will have on the neighbouring SSSI, and why this has been characterised as a like-for-like replacement? Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Ms Austin. I call once again on Councillor Everett to respond.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Ms Austin for her question. I think there's a bit of confusion really in the question. The berth is not currently processing 400 tonnes of aggregate per hour. Vessel arrivals on the berth occur approximately fortnightly. In 2019, an average of 125 tonnes per day was discharged via the berth. The purpose of the berth is to transfer aggregate from a vessel to the shore. The berth itself doesn't have any aggregate processing ability, and obviously it's not in use all the time, so the actual capacity of it is not particularly relevant to that. The existing conveyor on the berth, however, has the capability of transferring 400 tonnes of aggregate per hour while unloading a vessel. The performance specification for the replacement berth requires that it has the capability of safely accommodating the loads from a 3,000 tonne per hour conveyor. A higher capacity conveyor allows vessels to be unloaded faster, but this does not mean that the tonnage of aggregate handled will increase. And obviously it's more efficient for the company if they can unload the aggregate faster. The council is not currently aware of any plans by its customer, Brett Aggregates, to increase the volume of aggregate discharged via the berth following completion of the project. The replacement option chosen is the most economical option for the 30-year service life of the berth. It will be able to accommodate slightly larger vessels, but the council is not aware of any current proposals to bring larger vessels, and this is about making the berth viable over its service life as new vessels come into service. The berth has not been designed as an upgrade. The opinion of the Marine Management Organisation is that the proposed project is screened out of requiring an environmental impact assessment. This provides an indication of the low level of environmental risk posed by the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Everett. That concludes the agenda item for questions from members of the public. Moving on to agenda item 7, questions from members of the council. 6 questions this evening have been received from members of the council. Please note that the time allowed for consideration of the questions from members shall not exceed 30 minutes without the leave of the chair. And I'm feeling generous this evening. Agenda item 7A, question number 1 from a member regarding pontoons in Ramsgate Harbour. I call upon Councillor Wing. Councillor Wing, are you there?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it's a straight, close question, and I think my question is for Councillor Alban, and I would like to respond as well. Will one of the 2 BAM Nuttall pontoons presently mooring in Ramsgate's Royal Harbour be used to replace berths 4 and 5?
Now, thank you very much indeed, Councillor Wing. Is this Councillor Alban or Councillor?
No. Can I, Chair, if I can help clarify the matter for Councillor Wing and others who may be confused about that. I am the Cabinet Member for the Port and Harbour. That's why I answer questions about the Cabinet, about the Port and Harbour. Councillor Alban is not the Cabinet Member for the Port and Harbour. I understand that because he's the Cabinet Member for Operational Services, that may not be clear to members, but that is what that's what the portfolios are. So I deal with the Port and Harbour.
Thank you for that clarification.
To give you your answer, Councillor Wing, which I suspect you already know the answer.
Yep, of course I do.
A contract has been awarded to the contractor BAM Nuttall Limited for the replacement of the berth. The project will involve the reuse of one of the 2 pontoons that are currently moored in the Royal Harbour at Ramsgate.
A yes would have been great. Could I respond, Chair?
Howard, Councillor Wing, do you have a supplementary question?
I do. Given TDC has been locked into a lease agreement which does not end until 2054 with Brett's, and I believe the rent they pay according to the lease of 2009, which is the only copy I've been able to get a hand of, suggests that their rent is less than 20k a year, 2,500 for the cement batcher and 15,000 for the aggregates, but there is RPI to be added on the 11 years subsequent. It will take many years for the estimated 1.4 million of council taxpayers' money to be recouped. How was this spend justified, given Bretts did not ask for this replacement, and the last engineers report of 2015-16 did not recommend a replacement?
Would you like me to reply, Chair?
Yes, I'm not sure that all of us got that. I was interrupted. Did all councillors manage to hear the supplementary question?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Right. Okay. Yes. Councillor Everett, would you like to respond, please?
I will, and I think that there's another misunderstanding here, and this has been something which has been aired over the last 18 months, in that the council should somehow draw up a business plan and decide whether it's financially sensible and a good business proposition to replace the berth. The council has a contractual commitment to provide a berth for unloading the aggregate. So the calculation of what profit the council might make out of that against the cost is not relevant. The council has a contractual commitment, and in order to depart from that contractual commitment, it would have to pay significant sums to extract itself. So we have to replace the berth. The berth has to be replaced because he's not fit for purpose. We weren't able to use it for parts of last winter because we took the view that in bad weather it could be a risk to people using it. It has to be replaced, and it can't be replaced like for like. So that process has been tendered. BAM Nuttall have won the contract, and we're in the process of doing that replacement before the winter weather sets in. And anything which poses a risk to our ability to do that before the winter weather poses a financial risk to this council, because we have a contract, and if we are responsible for Bretts not being able to bring in the aggregate over the winter months by ship, then they will have to bring it in by lorry, and we will have to meet the additional costs, or there's a risk we'd have to meet the additional costs. So that's why the project is going ahead. That's why it's a priority. And I can't comment on the actual detail of what Councillor Wing says about the contract. I'm not aware that those figures are accurate, but certainly it's not a matter of a calculation. It's a matter of a contractual commitment made by the council many years ago, and neither she nor I were party to that commitment at the time.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Everett. Agenda item 7B, question number 2 from a member regarding antisocial behaviour against beach huts. I call upon Councillor Bailey. Councillor Bailey, are you there?
I am. Good evening. My question is to Councillor Duckworth. Ongoing antisocial behaviour on the beaches late at night includes vandalising beach huts, using their wood and private property to build fires on the beach. How can TDC work with your leisure and the police to increase security and enforcement, perhaps ring-fencing some of the income to pay for CCTV?
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Councillor Bailey. I call upon Councillor Duckworth to respond. Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Bailey. Your Leisure manage the beach huts and provide security on Fridays, Saturdays and Sundays. They commence patrols at 8:30 p.m. and finish patrols at 2 a.m. We are not aware of any incidents of vandalism to the beach huts that have been reported to the council this season. Your Leisure are aware of one incident. In order to determine the most appropriate and effective action to take, we do need incidents to be reported in detail with information on the location where the antisocial behaviour is happening. This will enable us to work together with Your Leisure and other agencies to resolve persistent problems.
Councillor Bailey, do you have a supplementary?
Yeah, I do. Thank you. Thank you for your reply. And I agree with the reporting, obviously. I'm under the impression that there are some mobile CCTV cameras around that TDC use, and I just wondered if these could be utilised during the summer months on the proms and beaches.
I believe there are. I know there's CCTV, whether probably mobile ones. That I also know that everybody wants CCTV, but it's certainly something that we can look into. But you know, there are resource issues there. So, but yeah, thank you for drawing my attention to it.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Duckworth. Agenda item 7C, question number 3 from a member regarding re-examination of temporary traveller sites. I call upon Councillor Roper. Councillor Roper, can you unmute?
Yes, hello, thank you. TDC has a legal obligation to provide sites for travellers. Sites at Potton Street and Shotton Dane Road are being put forward to Cabinet, but Potton Street in particular has strong local objections. In addition, only having 2 sites could cause problems. Could the whole process now be re-examined?
Thank you, Councillor Roper. I do think Councillor Whitehead was going to respond, but Councillor Everett is going to respond for her. Councillor Everett.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the question, Councillor Roper. And I've got to take the advice that Councillor Wynne gave me in response to the previous question. The answer is yes.
Thank you very much, Councillor Everett. Councillor Roper, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, I was at a parish council meeting at St Nicholas virtually on Tuesday, and I found out that the whole process is being started again, and that those 2 sites now have been sort of taken off the calendar, as it were. So I'd just like to ask if landowners in the area could be asked if they have more suitable sites that they could make available. If you want an example, there's a large amount of unused land at a certain disused airport near here. Thank you.
Yes, very amusing. Back to you, Councillor Everett.
Yes, and in fact, Councillor Roper, that's exactly what the report going to Cabinet on the 17th talks about. What we've decided is that we should put it through the local plan review process, which is a formal process, and that will involve a call for sites. And it will also involve a much more structured and comprehensive consultation process. And one of the concerns that I did have is that the call for temporary sites wasn't being subjected to a comprehensive consultation process for very good reasons, partly around COVID and partly around the nature of the temporary sites. But I think that the reassurance that members of the public will get from a proper process put through the local plan review is certainly very worthwhile, and we will certainly be looking at what other land is available for this purpose.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Everett. Moving on to agenda item 7D, question number 4 from a member regarding temporary traveller sites. I call upon Councillor Pugh. Can you unmute, Councillor Pugh?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I will try not to. I'll try not to rerun through what Councillor Roper has asked, but I will repeat my question that I submitted. I know things have moved on since I submitted it, but I will still read it out. As travel incursions continue to rise across Thanet, not least in my own ward, what measures is this council taking to secure temporary sites to tackle this issue?
Thank you very much, Councillor Pugh. Returning to Councillor Everett.
Well, I think I've responded that there is a report going to Cabinet on the 17th, and there'll be an opportunity for further discussion of that there.
Thank you very much, Councillor Everett. In the circumstance, Councillor Pugh, have you got a supplementary?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Chair. Yes, Leader. My supplementary, particularly considering, as you just mentioned, the change in the decision that is being proposal that is being put to Cabinet next week, particularly that the call for sites will be incorporated into potentially a review of the local plan. Can you assure me that any review or call for sites that is implemented with this review for the local plan, as you said earlier in response to Councillor Roper, will be far more wide-reaching, far more consultative with residents across Thanet, and actually that when the decision is made to narrow it down to a few options, that it isn't narrowed down to only 2, when 2 sites are preferred to be progressed before it's come to consultation, so that we can ensure that actually as many residents across the Isle are consulted on what is a very important issue.
Thank you, Councillor Pugh. Back to you, Councillor Everett.
Yes, well, I mean, the nature of the local plan review is that it involves a much wider consultation, so that will certainly be happening. I would like to thank Councillor Pugh for his email, which he sent 4 minutes before the Cabinet meeting at which we were discussing the sites, in which he made a case against Potton Street. Obviously, 4 minutes wasn't really enough time for Cabinet to receive and consider the email, but we did read it after the meeting, after we decided not to consider the item. And then I was sent an email which was sent by Councillor Pugh at 6:11 on the same evening, probably about 10 minutes after it finished, in which he wrote to the chair of the parish council at Nicholas at Wade and Sarr, and said that due to procedural failings brought to light by himself and other councillors, this decision has been delayed until the Cabinet meeting on the 19th of August, which was quite a surprise to Mr. Bryant, who he wrote to, because he, in fact, was the person who raised the issue with me that caused the item to be dropped, and I'd never heard anything on the subject from Councillor Pugh. Thank you.
Well, Leader, I do apologise, but also myself and Councillor Boyd raised this with officers on the day ahead of the Cabinet meeting to do with queries to do with the matrix. So I'd just like to clarify that.
You've had your supplementary, Councillor Pugh. Councillor Everett, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Moving on to agenda item 7E, question number 5 from a member regarding beach lifts in Ramsgate and Broadstairs. I call upon Councillor Rolfe.
Thank you, Chair. It is Council's duty to look after everyone in the community. Older people and disabled people were excluded from enjoying the beach on their doorsteps. In Broadstairs and Ramsgate, can the council explain to me why they have not acted quickly to fix the lift, to be ready for those people to use it? The council know that while many residents in Thanet are elderly and disabled and have promised to prioritise their needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. I call upon Councillor Duckworth to respond. Councillor Duckworth.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Rolfe. There is disability access to Ramsgate Main Sands via Harbour Parade and to the other end of the beach. Car parking includes designating disabled bays along Marina Esplanade. There is disability access via the Pavilion Gardens onto the boardwalk at Viking Bay. We've now extended the matting so that it joins the boardwalk, providing additional access straight off Harbour Street. There are designated disabled bays in the Harbour car park. Due to the restrictions imposed by the government response to the COVID-19 emergency, both lifts had to be closed, although the appropriate annual maintenance has still been undertaken. When the lockdown restrictions were eased, there was still the issue of achieving legal requirements for social distancing in a confined space such as a lift. The decision was made to keep both lifts closed, but we were approached by a residents group in Broadstairs to look at the option of opening the lift. The first issues has been the availability of specialist contractors to repair the lift so that it would be fully operational. Many manufacturing companies are still on furlough. The second issue relates to compliance with social distancing requirements. TDC does not have the resources to have the lift staffed at all times, increase cleaning, ensure only those who need it get access, and that they are from the same family and wear face coverings. Discussions are still ongoing with the residents group. Due to both of these issues not being resolved, the lift unfortunately remains closed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Duckworth. Councillor Roth, I would just mention that you didn't actually stick to the full wording of your question. And just for all members listening in at the moment, it is important that the question is adhered to properly, enabling the respondent to reply accurately. So bearing that in mind, could you please move on to your supplementary, which I presume you may have?
Yeah, I apologise for that. Can the council reassure me and these residents of Thanet that council will use winter period to service and make sure lifts are ready for summer to be used, not pass it to member of the public to take responsibility of it? Thank you.
As far as I understand, the maintenance and servicing went ahead, and I can't see any reason why it won't go ahead next year. But obviously, I'll keep an eye on that and get back to you if there's any issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Duckworth. Moving on to agenda item 7F, question number 6 from a member regarding antisocial behaviour at Dane Park. I call upon Councillor Taylor. Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, good evening. It's a question to Councillor Whitehead.
Do please proceed.
Yeah. Councillor Whitehead, you and I have spoke frequently regarding measures that we can take to ensure that Dane Valley and Dane Park areas are as safe as welcoming as possible. I know we would like to fully discuss our approaches to this. So can we outline current measures and your plans, please?
Thank you very much, Councillor Taylor. Of course, Councillor Whitehead is not able to receive your question this evening, so I'll turn to Councillor Everett.
Councillor Alban is going to answer this one just to be different.
Ah, right. Councillor Alban, you're in the chair for the moment then. Councillor Alban, are you there? Can you unmute your microphone?
Sorry, just for a change, Chair, just to give Councillor Everett a rest. The answer is the community safety team are working with the park and open spaces team to try and resolve some of the issues raised by councillors and residents, such as unauthorised traveller camps and antisocial behaviour. It is important that any such matters as assaults are reported to Kent Police. The community safety team work alongside the the Kent Police and the task force to act in a multi-agency approach to the specific issues raised. The community safety team are aware that the community needs and aspirations are part of the scoping exercise for the Thanet Community Safety Partnership. Also, I have already agreed to meet with ward councillors and residents at Dane Park next week to listen to their concerns and to see what can be done. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Alban. Councillor Taylor, do you have a supplementary question?
No, I'll just look forward to next week, and thank you very much, Councillor Alban.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, that concludes agenda item 7 and our questions from members this evening. Moving therefore on to agenda item 8, motions on notice. One motion on notice has been received in accordance with Council Procedure Rule 3. Agenda item 8A, notice on motion, Park Avenue Broadstairs. I call upon Councillor Garner. Councillor Garner, are you there to read your motion?
I am, thank you.
Can I just remind you at this point, stick to the exact wording of your motion, otherwise I'll have to get council to agree any change.
Okay, then I'm just about to do that. Beg your pardon. To consider a notice of motion to require the owner of the area of woodland of Park Avenue, east of Parkwood Close, Broadstairs, Land Registry Reference K61934, to replant any trees covered by tree protection orders within that area following the recent heavy felling, and to reaffirm its current view that the area should remain as open space and woodland.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Garner. Do you have a seconder for this motion?
I believe Councillor Bailey.
I'd like to second the motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Bailey. Now, in accordance with Council Procedure Rule 3.7, a member of the controlling political group is entitled to reply. And I believe in this instance, Councillor Duckworth. Councillor Duckworth, are you there? Councillor Duckworth. Am I to take it? Yeah, are you there, Councillor Duckworth?
Yeah, I don't have a reply for this. I haven't.
You're not going. Well, that's fine. No, it's just that you have the right to do so on behalf of your group if you wish to do so. Okay, then, right, I'll move on. Do we wish to debate this motion, in which case I need a proposer and a seconder? Do I have a proposer?
Am I allowed to propose it?
Well, you've already put forward the motion, so I need a proposer to debate from somebody else.
I'll propose it, Chair.
Councillor Everett, do I have a seconder?
I will second it. Councillor Wing will second it.
Thank you very much indeed. Members should note that this motion relates to a cabinet function. Council can only resolve to pass this to cabinet for consideration. Would somebody like to please start the debate?
Maybe I could then, as the
Councillor Garner, yes, if you'd like to.
Very much. Thank you. Well, I welcome the opportunity to propose this motion to Council today. I am a little disappointed that I have to. As we heard earlier from Amanda, the representative of Park Avenue Woodland Group, more than 40 mature trees were felled earlier this year in clear breach of tree protection orders dating from 1956 and 1985. There is little question that the landowners have a case to answer, and this motion calls on the council or the cabinet to take the action which should have been taken months ago, i.e. to serve a tree replacement order on the landowner to make them plant replacement trees on the site, and additionally to reaffirm that this woodland should remain as open space woodland in the future. We have all been contacted by local residents about the impact this has had on their local environment and on the residents themselves, and it's important that we recognise the strength of feeling across Thanet for the protection and enhancement of our precious biodiversity. Not enough has been done since we declared a climate emergency 15 months ago to protect our already dwindling tree cover across Thanet. Their protection isn't high enough priority. We continue to make it much too difficult for tree protection orders to be both applied for and then implemented, while also making it too easy for developers to ignore the limited number of new trees and hedges they plant on new estates, leaving them to die. This is an opportunity for us to send a clear message to others who are considering similar action that Thanet District Council takes the protection of our trees and hedges seriously. And I urge you all to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Garner. I think you might find that there's more interest in this matter than you realise. I do have a number of speakers who would like to put their names forward. Starting with Councillor Bailey. Councillor Bailey, would you like to take over here?
Thank you. The felling, I can't go over the arrogance, actually, criminal arrogance of these people that, say they want to cut down one tree, they get permission to cut down one tree and they go and cut down 40 odd. You can reasonably assume from their actions that they might have plans, to put in a development application at some time in the future. I haven't been able to find one at the moment, and I can't find any permissions within the local plan for any future development on this land. And obviously with the local plan adoption, I think the council are in a much stronger place now to refuse such speculative applications. I'm part of the local review group, and I did forward a suggestion a while back that any designated woodland like this should be incorporated and registered within the local plan like the green wedges are to afford them more protection. So I think three things. I know we've had the COVID situation this year, and I understand that the council have been under pressure, but it's been a long time. I think it was February this was action was taken, and there's still not been any expedition of the order to replace the lost trees. There's been no legal enforcement as far as I'm aware. So I think it really needs to be done now. So I think there's three things that need to be done straight away. All the remaining trees on the site need to be protected. The council must expedite the order to replace the lost trees, like for like, and an example needs to be made via legal enforcement to stop it happening elsewhere as well. Thank you. And
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. That's excellent. Okay. Councillor Ashby, you're next. Are you there, Councillor Ashby?
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you.
As 4 out of the 6 questions from the public this afternoon were on the subject of trees, obviously it is of high importance to us. I mean, for me personally, I have great interest in this, as I'm striving to run a project to replace trees that have willfully or unwillfully been removed from the island. I personally, and I'm sure other members that have an interest in this, would like to actually see a report that our tree officer could prepare for us to explain the full sequence of events that led up to this, and also the legal entities that have either been broken or not broken. And I'd like that to be shared with full council before it actually goes to cabinet. I think we all have a big interest in it, and I would really like to see that sort of information, and we utilise our tree officer, who is obviously an expert in this field, regarding also the subject of TPOs, because obviously, once it goes into cabinet, then we don't necessarily get the full benefit of the information that would come out prior to that. So I think this is a full interest to all councils. So I suppose it's a sub proposal that, you know, we could have access to a report prepared by our own tree officers so that we can be all fully au fait with whether laws have been broken or not broken, and how we can actually eliminate this type of practice in the future. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ashby. In actual fact, that is an important point that you make, because that is indeed the very reason why, as a council, we can't make a decision this evening, because it would be uninformed. So thank you very much indeed for that. Moving on, Councillor Alban. Are you there, Councillor Alban?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I fully support this motion, Chair. And as a previous officer of this council who would deal with such matters, the issue of having a blanket preservation orders on areas such as this one in Park Avenue in Broadstairs is very difficult. It's very difficult to enforce, and the reason for that is that when these blanket TPOs, when these blanket preservation orders were put in, especially the 1956 one, and certainly in court cases that I've been involved in dealing with such matters, is that the self-seeded trees are not covered by the blanket preservation order. So depending, you've then got to identify the trees that were originally there at the time of the preservation order, which goes back to 1956, and subsequently one, I think, as Councillor Garner says, in 1985. Now, I'm quite sure that the planning enforcement team who will deal with this matter, and just to slightly go off key to what Councillor Ashby has said, I think this is a matter for the tree officer will only go and look on site as to see what the quality of the trees are. He doesn't give. He has no official dealings with any of the enforcement side of the matter. I'm sure, knowing the planning enforcement team as I do, Chair, have got fully involved in this and are investigating to the best of their ability. And also, these trees have to be identified so that any prosecution that can take place can do so in the knowledge that the council has done everything that it can to ensure that a prosecution, should it go ahead, can be successful. So I think as members, whilst I fully support this, fully to the hilt, because we should make these people pay, and I'm fully for that. But I also agree with Councillor Ashby that we should have the full advice coming back to members, and probably at full council. And I just wanted to make those points, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Alban. That's good. Moving on to Councillor Piper. Councillor Piper, you're next.
Thank you, Chairman. I think possibly for the benefit of the public who are watching in on this meeting as well, because I'm sure all of us elected members are fully supportive of this motion and would want it to go to Cabinet for their consideration and their reports then back to us. I'm wondering if absolute silence, if you were to ask, Mr. Chairman, for only those who are opposing this to speak up, and that you would take a resounding silence as a confirmation that we wish it to go to Cabinet. I wonder if that might be something you would consider doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Piper. I shall stick to procedure just for the moment. Well, that's a very good idea, May. We'll take it up. But we have one more speaker. I've got Councillor Everett who'd like to come in at this point.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I mean, I didn't intend to speak on this, but I'd just like to assure members that this matter was brought to my attention by the Green Group of Councillors, and they asked me to look into it. And I have had a very extensive briefing from Mr. Livingston in planning on what's been going on with this site. And I can assure you that it is exceptionally complicated and has required a lot of detective work by our planning officers to understand the tree preservation orders that are in place, which come from different decades, have different terms, and as Councillor Alban has described, don't necessarily cover self-seeding trees or particular types of tree. So they've had quite a job to work out which trees were there in the first place were actually protected. But I'm satisfied, and I'm not going to go into the detail of it in full council now, but I'm satisfied that our officers are taking a very active approach to this issue on this site, and I absolutely recognise the public concern about it. And you shouldn't assume that because you haven't seen anything and you haven't heard anything that the council is not doing anything, because that isn't the case. Now, as to how the information can be shared with members, I think we'd have to take a discussion about that, because obviously it's I don't quite understand the legalities of it, if I'm totally honest. I would like to see a members briefing around it so that members could understand some of what the issues are, and we'll take some we'll have some discussion, and no doubt when it comes to cabinet we'll be able to bring some advice. A report there will be in the public domain, obviously, but I understand members want more opportunity to talk about it, and as leader you have my commitment that we will find a way for that to happen as far as is consistent with good practice in the law.
Thank you, Councillor Everett, and I think that's well received, and we shall look forward to that. There are no other speakers, therefore I call upon Councillor Garner to read out the wording of his motion once again. Councillor Garner.
Okay, yeah, I shall go back to that. So the wording of the motion is to consider a notice of motion to require the owner of the area of woodland off Park Avenue, east of Parkwood Close, Broadstairs, Land Registry reference K61934, to replant any trees covered by tree protection orders within the area following the recent heavy felling, and to reaffirm its current view that the area should remain as open space woodland.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Garner. Now, my feeling here is that the councillors are very much in favour of this motion being put to Cabinet. Therefore, I shall look to do that, assuming that if anyone is against this motion, they speak out now. And I'm not getting anything against, which means I've got the whole council in favour, and therefore this motion will be put forward to Cabinet. Thank you very much indeed, councillors. Moving therefore on to agenda item 9, the Leaders' Report. As this meeting is entirely virtual, the Leaders' Report has been circulated to all members and published on the council website. I call upon, therefore, Councillor Game to comment on or ask questions in relation to the Leaders' Report. Councillor Game being the leader of the opposition in council. Councillor Game.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm just going to focus on 3 of the subjects raised in your report, but thank you for the report, Leader. And I think the way you now put it online is very, very helpful, and it's a very good way to progress. The new station, Thanet Parkway, this is definitely good news, and what inspirational thinking on the part of the previous administration to go for this. As you say, the 2 million is only to be used for supporting economic growth in Thanet, and the new station will definitely do that. The scheme will cost 34 million. Most of it is grants, but there's 5.8 million from KCC and the 2 million from us. Our contribution is actually relatively minor compared to some, but no one foresaw COVID and the financial pressures it has and will bring. So you say there is a further bid to the new stations fund. This will give a reduction to KCC, but how much will it give to our council? Will you actually be able to get our contribution reduced? I understand the grant funding will be spent first and any unused will be returned to KCC. So pressure needs to be put on KCC, and I would really like to know how much of our 2 million you hope to get back. On Manston, I'm not surprised you are not in support of this. I would think you would be thrown out of the South Thanet Labour Party if you said otherwise. As everyone knows, I and my group are firm supporters. We have been and always will be. You absolutely have a duty to work constructively with the owners. As to Manston being used as a lorry park, I have received assurances from KCC officers that this will be an absolute last resort. It is not on the government agenda. They have invested in a 27-acre site in Sevington for 2,000 lorries. This will also become a border control site. There will also be a contraflow system in place on the M20 with a movable barrier when Operation Brock, as it is now called, they keep changing the name, is in place. Finally, on performance issues, I am concerned that the peer review will look at culture. It's the governance that's the issue. But as we are now having a briefing, the scope of the review can be discussed, and hopefully from this, a decision can be made for this to be a wide-reaching review with a focus on governance. This whole issue cannot be political. It should be cross-party with contributions from all groups. It's a good move that you are now bringing in an external auditor from Grant Thornton. This is what my group have been asking for, and hopefully this will cover the governance issues. It is vital that no review should interfere with the workings and remit of the IDSC. But the question is a peer review the right way to go? I appreciate that asking for an investigation could be ineffective, bearing in mind it could not look at statutory officer behaviour, as this would indeed impact on the IDSC. However, it is absolutely essential that whatever is set up is wide and deep-ranging and effective enough to bring the governance within this organisation back to the standard to be expected of a successful council. Although I said this should not be political, basically, Leader, it's on your head to make sure whatever is put in place works. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Game. Councillor Everett, would you like to respond?
Yes, Chair, thank you. And yes, Thanet Parkway is good news. Now, I do have a particular interest in Thanet Parkway because I'm a resident of Cliffs End, as people like to remind me. And certainly I look forward to the delivery of the station. And I'd like to pay tribute to the cross-party working that's gone on with Conservatives elsewhere in the council, elsewhere in Kent, because we have worked together on this one. We do see it as a very big boost for the Thanet economy. How much money will we get back? I suppose what I would say to Councillor Game is she has to decide how much faith she has in the Conservative leader of Kent County Council. He and I have had very constructive and amicable discussions about this. I think that until we know what the outcome of the new Stations Fund bid is, neither of us wanted to put a figure on it. But I have to say I put in my confidence in Roger Goff on this issue because I've found him to be, we've worked together on this issue. And I assume that she has confidence in him, but she would have opportunities, no doubt, to reply to that. My position on Manchester Airport is unchanged from my previous tenure of the council. I have concerns about its impact on Ramsgate and in particular night flights, but I do recognise that this council has to engage with the situation as it is and not try and overturn things which are already in place. I think she's wrong about the use of Manchester as a airport park, as a lorry park. I was in a meeting with Michael Gove earlier in the week and Kent MPs. It's very clear from that meeting that they see Manchester as a useful contingency if there are traffic problems. They haven't reached don't have an agreement with RSP, but some people in that meeting were very bullish about getting it. So I'm afraid it may be coming down the track. The peer review, well, we're going to have the discussion on Tuesday with members, and members will say what they want to say there. Absolutely, we've got to get the governance right, but it's a question of running the process in the right order. I'm not bringing in the external auditor, and I can assure Councillor Game and other members of the council they're not bringing in the external auditor because the external auditor will decide what she's going to do. That's not how it works at all. But I'm absolutely committed to having the governance of this organisation examined and to prove that everything is in order. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Leader. I call upon Councillor Reverend Piper to comment on and ask questions in relation to the Leader's report. Councillor Piper, are you there?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Leader, for this report. I would like to add my vote of approval to the manner of releasing the report in the way that you're doing. But could I ask that it's made much easier to send it on to my personal computer because my home screen is much bigger and I can actually see it. I would not, of course, publish it more widely than its intended audience. but it asks for security reasons for me to receive it. I have to agree with your sentiments about the council departments functioning really well in difficult circumstances. Build it and they will come, someone once said, and our beaches are being targeted by visitors, which is great. But personally, I believe the teams work exceptionally hard, and many of those visitors and some local residents, sadly, seem to treat their efforts with disdain. Enforcement can often be self-funding, so I wonder, isn't it time that officers patrol beaches and spot fine people walking away and abandoning their rubbish? They do it in Morocco, why not here? I would like to add that I think Councillor Whitehead has been doing an outstanding job working with housing in what clearly has been a very difficult time. I'm delighted to hear too that democratic services are being considered for an achievement award from their peers. Fewer things are perhaps more rewarding than such praise from people who know and understand your work. Leader, therefore, I think you can tell, I think most members would agree with your sentiments of praise for council departments and in some cases, individuals. The council is working really, really well in really difficult circumstances. What puzzles me and many of my colleagues, though, and I'll try not to be too repetitive here, is why then the need for a peer review? The last time this council had one, almost everyone was in agreement that it was needed. The culture was exceptionally toxic. Mass walkouts by members, shouting during the chamber during meetings, as well as very difficult working relationships between members and officers and amongst employees. Not much of that kind of behaviour is evident this time. So why the rush for such a wide-ranging review? I'm thinking that perhaps it is unfortunate that the briefing that's coming wasn't held last Tuesday, because the briefing meetings are held fortnightly, and perhaps it could have formed, given us a more informed position for this meeting this evening. I am on record as saying I think it would be taking a blunderbuss to the whole organisation, and it could undo all the recent progress that's been made and create distrust. This time, Leader, I really don't think that a peer review would attract anything like the level of support needed to make it work. Whatever may or may not be needed, I think a laser beam approach is far more appropriate. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Piper. I call upon the Leader to respond. Councillor Everett.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Piper. I think we'll take the issue of how you access the report perhaps outside the council meeting, but I hear what you're saying, and I welcome your comments about the beaches. And certainly, it occurred to me that the staff that we've got working so hard on the beaches in all that heat were doing a tremendous job, and they certainly do need our thanks and our respect. And I'm just sad that so often the story is about litter, because the council staff don't leave the litter. I'm afraid our visitors do, and sometimes our residents do, but that is a big issue for us on the beaches. In terms of enforcement, we are looking to put our bylaws into a public space protection order, which will allow enforcement. At the moment, our bylaws can only be enforced by prosecution, which isn't really practical. And I think once we've got a PSPO in place around it, which is a process, needs consultation, we'll be in a much better place to do enforcement. I absolutely agree with your comments about Councillor Whitehead, and you know, I made my comments about Councillor Whitehead to the Isle of Thanet News yesterday. I think she's an outstanding councillor. I'm sorry she's not here tonight. I look forward to seeing her back at the next council meeting, and obviously I work very closely with her. On the subject of the peer review, well, we couldn't bring that to the previous briefing because the LGA wouldn't have been ready to have told you what they planned to do a fortnight ago. And the reason why we brought it forward now is that very serious allegations have been made, and those allegations have been reproduced in the press, particularly around issues of bullying and harassment. And members need to have confidence that isn't an accurate characterisation of the council as a whole. I'm confident that's the case, but I think council officers and council members need an opportunity to tell an independent authority that. We need a rounded overview. And on the subject of a laser focus, absolutely, we're going to look at the issues that we want to look at. We're not going to look at everything that the council does, but we'll talk about that at the briefing next week, and you'll have every opportunity to make your input there. But thank you for your response, Councillor Piper.
Thank you very much indeed, Leader. I call upon Councillor Garner to comment on or ask questions in relation to the Leader's report. Councillor Garner, are you there?
I am still here, yes. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'd also like to join Councillors Game and Piper in thanking the Leader for his report and how it was delivered. And I would like to join him in recognising the hard work put in by council staff across the district who've had to contend in unique circumstances to deliver services to residents. As he says, following his visits to Dane Park and Manston Green Depot, a number of these staff have to work in outdated facilities, and I agree with him that improvements to these areas need to be high priority post-COVID. We've had a busy council meeting at which it's been good to spend time listening to residents' concerns on our tree coverage and to debate our response. So I won't take up my full 5 minutes and will focus on the high priority areas. Our views on Thanet Parkway Station and the granting of Manston DCO are well known and haven't changed. We are disappointed with the news that approval has been given for the new Thanet Parkway Station in Cliffsend. The enormous cost, currently £34 million, is going to result in the loss of greenfield sites, including countless mature trees and long-term disruption for Cliffsend residents, all for the sake of shaving a couple of minutes off journey times to London. As for Manston, as we see a huge reduction in air travel and airports with spare capacity for cargo flights, we remain opposed to the granting of the DCO by the Minister, overruling the Planning Inspectorate's concerns, and support the judicial review of this decision. I'd like to thank the Leader for keeping us informed on developments relating to the serious issues that were raised in the recent article in the Municipal Journal as a result of the leaked letter. As he intimates, these allegations are not new, and we agree with Councillor Game and Piper that they need to be properly addressed through an external audit of covenants and culture. We believe there is an urgent need for greater transparency at TDC and hope that investigation into the culture will include a situation where members' requests for information about the council's plans are made increasingly difficult, and hope that be high on the agenda. No council that is operating properly should have anything to fear from sharing information and allowing external bodies to scrutinise its work. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Garner. Back to you, Leader.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you to Councillor Garner for his comments. Yeah, I mean, it was the first time that I've been to the Manston Road and Dane Park depots, and I must admit that I never got there when I was a councillor here previously. And I would encourage members of the council to take such opportunities as they get to visit those sites, because some of our most important staff and our most visible staff work out of those bases. And I don't think that the conditions are satisfactory. And I think we need to look in our reorganisations post-COVID to make improvements for those staff, because I think, you know, we're probably not doing them, we're doing them a disservice under current conditions for historic and understandable financing reasons, but I think we need to do better. You know, I'm never going to agree with the Thanet Green position on Parkway Station. You know, it seems extraordinary to me that the Green Party are opposed to a railway station, but there we go. This is going to leave a £26 million of public money into the district, which would not come in for any other project. I have every confidence that in 5 or 10 years' time, people will think that those who oppose this station were mad. I think it will be successful, and it's not about journey times to London, it's about accessibility. Because presently, to give you an example, and I am an example, if I go on the train, I drive to Ramsgate Station, I drive to Minster Station, or I drive to Sandwich Station and get on the train. So I'm already driving to get on the train. And that is an addition to my journey time. So it's not how long the train takes to get from Ramsgate to Cliffsend, it's how long it takes for me to get to Cliffsend to Ramsgate. Now, I'm not stupid enough to think that the council should contribute and the government should contribute to build a station for me. But there is a great deal of development to be done in Thanet. We need growth, we need more prosperity, and we need change. And I'm afraid that this strange argument which goes around about we've got 7 stations already, why do we need an 8th? You know, perhaps we should invest in Dumpton Park. I don't know. It just misses the point completely. We need a station which is where that station is, or at that point on the line, in order to open up other areas. And finally, on the point of transparency, I think that's a good one. And I think it's a great issue for the Green Party councillors to raise with the LGA team in the peer review. And let's have a discussion about it. Let's see what they think about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Leader. Moving therefore on to agenda item 10, the report of the Chairman of the Overview and Scrutiny Panel. I call upon our very experienced Chairman of Overview and Scrutiny, Councillor Bayford, to present his report. Councillor Bayford.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I hope that the report is self-explanatory, but I will obviously be happy to answer any questions that members have. What I would like to note in passing, though, is that members have actively engaged in identifying items for future scrutiny. These were ranked using a matrix developed by Democratic Services, and at our last meeting, it was agreed that over time, the panel will work through this list. I would also like to report that the Memorial Working Party is now being set up, will hold its first meeting later in the month. This obviously relates to issues surrounding the Uncle Matt plaque in Broadstairs and other issues. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Bayford. Do members have any comments? Would you like to let me know now if anyone would like to speak? It doesn't look like it. So thank you very much indeed, Councillor Bayford. Moving on to agenda item 11, the Budget Monitoring Report number 1 for 2020-21. I will now ask the Cabinet Member for Finance, Administration and Community Wealth Building, Councillor Yates, to present the report. Councillor Yates, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Chair. In the General Fund 2019-20 budget, Thanet District Council overspent by around £500,000. In order to set the budget for 2020-21, which is this year's budget, we had to find savings of £730,000. Many of the planned savings we put into the budget in February are now unlikely to be delivered because of COVID. On top of this, the pandemic has added to our costs and negatively affected our income generation. Our current estimates suggest a total shortfall from lost income and additional expenditure of £5.6 million. We have estimated government grants of £2.6 million. This leaves a budget gap of £3 million. Any longer-term financial impact of coronavirus will be picked up in the 21-22 budget. Next year's budget will also have to address the underlying budget problem of undelivered savings, even if our income bounces back. Today, Cabinet has recommended to Council action to address the current year gap. Cabinet does not recommend cutting services or making redundancies, so the proposals provide funding for the £3 million from reserves. The Council already has low reserves before coronavirus, so there were difficult choices to be made as to which reserves to use. Cabinet proposals are set out in Annex 1. By making a decision now, Council is showing that it wishes to address the budget problems head on. This gives reassurance to the Section 151 officer that the Council will take the decisions to address the COVID losses. Cabinet proposes doing this by allocating some of those losses to specific reserves, some £2.2 million of them. The remaining £800,000 will be held in a COVID shortfall reserve and only be allocated service budgets on income loss. For example, sorry, I've lost my place. This helps manage the uncertainty on our estimates. Some estimates on income loss, for example, may turn out to be not as bad as we think, so not all of the shortfall reserve may be called upon. If this happens, depending on the size of any balance at the end of the year, we may need to make a decision as to whether or not we retain the reserve. The decision to use our limited reserves should not be taken lightly. Once we've used them, they're gone, and we have relatively low reserves before the pandemic. The Section 151 officer assures us that COVID has not yet dealt a fatal blow to our finances, but there is very little headroom if unforeseen costs materialise in the future. We do not know what the long-term impact of COVID will be on the council finances, and we may well have to make further tough decisions in the weeks and months to follow. None of these choices are easy, but I hope the council can agree on this list of reserves in order to protect jobs and frontline services. I move the recommendations.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Yates. Have you got a seconder? Is a seconder here who'd like to step forward?
I'll second that, Chair. Councillor Alban.
Councillor Alban, I have your seconding. Thank you very much indeed. Just to remind councillors, the motion is that council approves, firstly, the General Fund Review Budget 2021 forecast position. Secondly, the General Fund Capital Programme 2020-21 forecast position. Thirdly, the proposals to fund the budget gap created by COVID-19. We have a recorded vote at this point. Can I hand you over to the monitoring officer? Are you there, monitoring officer?
Sorry, Chairman. Before we start, sorry, do you want to debate the motion?
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Hughes. Yes, members, I've jumped too soon. Is there anybody who would like to talk on the motion at all? I don't have anybody who's come up so far. I'm taking that as a no. So over to you, monitoring officer.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm going to ask members to vote either in favour, to abstain, or vote against. Councillor Alban.
For.
Councillor Ara.
For.
Councillor Ashby. Councillor Ashby. I'll come back to Councillor Ashby.
Sorry, bad connection. 4.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Bailey.
4.
Councillor Bainbridge.
4.
Councillor Jill Bayford.
4.
Councillor Robert Bayford.
4.
Councillor Boyd.
4.
Councillor Campbell.
4.
Councillor Coleman Cook.
4.
Councillor Crittenden.
4.
Councillor Curry.
4.
Councillor Day.
4.
Councillor Dexter.
4.
Councillor Duckworth.
4.
Councillor Everett.
4.
Councillor Farrance.
4.
Councillor Fellows.
4.
Councillor Game.
4.
Councillor Garner.
4.
Councillor Green. Councillor Green. Oh, not present. Oh. Councillor Green. No. Councillor Gregory.
4.
Councillor Hart.
4.
Councillor Hopkinson.
4.
Councillor Huxley.
4.
Councillor Keane.
4.
Councillor Patmore.
4.
Councillor Ovenden. Councillor Ovenden.
4.
Thank you.
Sorry, a technical problem.
Councillor Linda Piper.
Go.
Councillor Linda Piper.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Stuart Piper.
4.
Councillor Potts.
She said
apologies.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. Councillor Pugh. Councillor Pugh.
Pugh.
Okay. Councillor Rattigan.
4.
Councillor Rolfe.
4.
Councillor Rogers.
4.
Councillor Roper.
4.
Councillor Rozecki.
4.
Councillor David Saunders.
4.
Councillor Maeve Saunders.
4.
Councillor Savage.
4.
Councillor Scobie.
4.
Councillor Scott. Councillor Scott.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Shrub.
4.
Councillor Taylor.
4.
Councillor Tomlinson.
4.
Councillor Towning.
4.
Councillor Wing.
4.
Councillor Wright.
4.
Councillor Yates.
For.
Councillor Green.
Present and for.
Thank you. I think that's everybody now. Let's check. Oh, Councillor Pugh. Councillor Pugh. Okay. That's party NEMCON, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed, Monitoring Officer. That did sound to me unanimous, apart from those who were absent. Thank you very much indeed. Moving on to agenda item 12, the revised HRA budget and monitoring 2020-21 and HRA provisional outturn 2019-2020. I'll now ask the Cabinet Member for Finance, Administration, Community Wealth Building, Councillor Yates, to present the report. Councillor Yates, back to you.
Thank you, Chair. The housing revenue account is having to cope with the same uncertainty as the general fund. The main potential impact of COVID is on housing rent income collection. This may yet be insulated from some of the worst effects of COVID, as about 2/3 of our rent income is from benefits. However, there will be an impact. Perhaps a bigger challenge to the HRA, now and over the long term, is in accommodating the transfer of East Kent housing to the Council. I believe there is agreement across the Council that this is the right thing to do, and Cabinet has agreed that the date of transfer will be the 1st of October 2020, but there are many costs of doing this. Taken together with the COVID estimated costs, the HRA is a budget gap of 1.4 million. There are substantial one-off costs relating to project management and IT. There are also costs associated with fixing the problems we inherited from East Kent housing. Many of the reasons for the decision to bring it in-house were related to tenant health and safety concerns around such issues as fire safety and gas safety. Our tower blocks require a huge amount of investment, coupled with the cost of creating the new tenant and leaseholder service. The HRA's finances are taking a hit. The report shows that over the long term, the HRA can recover, although some of the warnings regarding uncertainty that affect the general fund also affect the HRA. I move the recommendations.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Yates. Do you have a seconder there? Seconder, please.
I'll second it. Yeah, Councillor Alban.
Councillor Alban again. Well done. Thank you very much. Does anybody wish to debate this, discuss this matter? I call upon any councillor now to step forward. I'm not picking up anybody in the chat column. So just to remind everybody the recommendations of this report, Council agree the following. Number one, that the HRA budget monitoring is noted. Number two, that the revised HRA budget estimates for 2020-21 are approved. Thirdly, that the revised housing revenue account capital programs, attached Annex 1 for 2024, are approved. Fourthly, that the Section 151 Officer's Assurance Statement, as set out in Section 10 of this report, is noted. Fifthly, note the 2019-2020 HRA provisional outturn position and capital programs outturn as per attended Annex 2. Therefore, turn to the monitoring officer once again for a recorded vote.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Councillor Alban.
For.
Councillor Ara.
For.
Councillor Ashby.
For.
Councillor Bailey.
For.
Councillor Bainbridge.
For.
Councillor Jill Bayford.
For.
Councillor Robert Bayford.
For.
Councillor Boyd.
For.
Councillor Campbell.
For.
Councillor Coleman Cook.
For.
Councillor Crittenden.
For.
Councillor Curry.
For.
Councillor Day.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Dexter.
For.
Councillor Duckworth.
For.
Councillor Everett.
For.
Councillor Farrance.
For.
Councillor Fellows.
For.
Councillor Game.
For.
Councillor Garner.
For.
Councillor Green.
For.
Councillor Gregory.
For.
Councillor Hart.
For.
Councillor Hopkinson.
For.
Councillor Huxley.
For.
Councillor Keane.
For.
Councillor Patmore. Councillor
For.
Patmore.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Ovenden.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Linda Piper.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Stuart Piper.
For.
Councillor Pugh.
He's left the meeting.
Okay, fair enough. Councillor Rattigan.
For.
Councillor Rolfe.
For.
Councillor Rogers.
For.
Councillor Roper.
For.
Councillor Rozecki. Councillor. Thank you. Councillor David Saunders.
For.
Councillor Maeve Saunders.
For.
Councillor Savage.
For.
Councillor Scobie.
For.
Councillor Scott.
For.
Councillor Shrub.
For.
Councillor Taylor.
For.
Councillor Tomlinson.
For.
Councillor Towning.
For.
Councillor Wing.
For.
Councillor Wright.
For.
Councillor Yates.
For.
That's unanimous, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed, Monitoring Officer. That concludes that item there. For agenda item 13, the report regarding urgent actions under Council Procedure Rule 28. Now, Monitoring Officer, would you like to bring forward this?
Yes, Chairman, happy to do so. Under our Constitution, there's provision for officers to take urgent items, related matters between meetings, and when the urgent items are carried out, there's also then an obligation to report them back to council. The council is aware of them. So the report here is for members to note. The first item relates to the sealing of documents. Members will understand that under our Constitution, the sealing of documents is carried out by a single member and a single officer. And the purpose of that is to it's not to check whether the document is accurate or to approve its contents. It's merely to attest that the council has affixed its common seal to that document. It's a procedural rule. Now, obviously, if I can take your minds back to the pandemic, when it started, when the lockdown came, when residents were only allowed to leave their houses to shop for basic amenities, where there was only one form of exercise per day, where work travel was can only be carried out when absolutely necessary, and only if you can't work from home, and that gatherings of more than 2 people was prohibited. So there was a concern that actually we wouldn't be able to seal documents for a number of reasons. One is that because of the lockdown restrictions, which stopped people leaving home without reasonable excuse, and to minimise the risk of transmission of the virus, and particularly to vulnerable shelter people, we thought that the pool of people who could actually seal the documents was going to be drastically reduced. Also, one time the staff were here all week, and therefore during that week you could have 37 hours when we ever could do any sealing. But actually, with staff not being in the building, then that time was limited a lot. So not only was the pool going to be limited, but also the time of availability was also limited. It had to be a particular hour, a particular day when sealing took place. So given that restriction and the need to enable the council to continue to complete contracts, agreements, tree preservation orders, property transactions, statutory notices, etc., action was taken to actually widen the pool of people who could seal documents to increase it to 2 officers being able to seal documents. And that was done, and this I should absolutely make clear, this is a temporary measure to cover the issue caused by the pandemic. So it will continue in place until we get closer to normality, when clearly we will have that wider pool available and there'll be wider hours available for that to happen. So that's the first item. The second item related to the Business and Planning Act 2020, which came into force in very short order. And it's about licensing of tables and chairs on the highway. Again, there's no power to put a report together to bring it to members to explain how the delegation will work in that act and how it actually implement the terms of that act. So again, urgent action was taken to delegate to all officers the functions relating to the processing and determination of applications for pavement outdoor seating licenses, to agree a fee, and also to give to the licensing subcommittee, the licensing board, the function of hearing and deciding appeals. So there are 2 urgent items that were brought to this council now not for approval, but to note that those actions were taken and the grounds for that action.
Thank you very much indeed, Monitoring Officer. And of course, that is the real issue here. This is a recommendation to note the report and that only. I'm therefore prepared to propose this, and I look to the Vice Chairman to second. Vice Chairman, are you there?
Yeah, I second that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed. I do have two speakers who wish to speak. Councillor Tomlinson, would you like to come in at this point?
Thank you, Chair. I've made it quite clear my concern originally regarding the signature situation, because I know Tim knows that I'm one of the members that have been coming in, never had a problem. When I read the report earlier, I had the impression, which I don't think I'm alone, that it was something which was continuous, and I felt that, you know, a member, whoever that might be, should look at a document and sign it, as it has been done for years. But I do know today, Tim, that you've tried to get me, and not ignoring you. I've had a crazy day, but the chairman, Councillor Savage, caught up with me during the afternoon and explained exactly what you've just explained, that it is a temporary measure. And obviously we are all fed up with this COVID, but I do understand that, and I do take the point. And I think yourself and other members who were with us remember we had this situation 3 years ago at Standards. But yes, I'm quite happy with your report tonight, and thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Tomlinson. Well said. Councillor Piper, I have you next.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. House, thank you. I think you've already answered this, if not totally, then mostly in part. I mean, the important thing in paragraph 2.4 was the sentiment that attesting the seal is not to agree the content or the form of the document, but simply to show the seal has been properly affixed. I think that statement should allay any concerns people might have. I'm imagining they're therefore, if we're alone in Kent in operating it the way we have been, is there an intention to leave it the way you now currently have it, or will you run it through constitutional review standards and so on to actually bring our constitution more in line with others? Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Piper. Monitoring Officer, have you got a response for that?
I have, yeah. So as you say, you're right, it's a temporary measure. And no, it won't continue forever with that report going back. I know the Constitution Review Working Party did approve this change, but it was a standard committee that opposed that. So I think it would have to come back, perhaps given the length of time that's passed since then, to review it again. So it's not something I'll do as of right. Any permanent change will come back to the Constitution Review Working Party and then to standards, and then after that to the council.
Thank you very much indeed, Monitoring Officer. Now, I don't have anybody else who wish to speak. Just to remind members, the recommendation, Council notes the urgent actions taken under Rule 28 of the Council Procedural Rules. And that, therefore, if I hear no more, I think we can take that forward as noted. Thank you very much indeed, members. I move the recommendation be agreed, and I presume that's all fair and square with everybody. Right, moving on to agenda item. Where am I? Oh, I seem to have lost some of my paperwork here. Agenda item 14, appointment of independent members of the Standards Committee. I recommend that these amendments be agreed. Would the Vice Chairman please second?
I'd second that, Mr. Chairman.
And the recommendation, of course, being that Mr. Lee Wellbrook and Mr. Peter Renzo are appointed as independent members of the Standards Committee for a term expiring at the annual meeting of the Council in 2023. I take it that no councillor has any objections to this. Thank you very much. Moving on to agenda item 15, changes to committees, panels and boards and political balance. Proportionality. I call upon the leader to make a proposal in respect of the options outlined in the report that we've all received and had the opportunity to look at. Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Savage. The Labour Group would like to support option 1. So I propose option 1, which would reduce the Labour Group on planning from 5 to 4 and increase the Conservative Group to 7, I believe.
Is there a seconder for that? I've got a seconder there, please.
Seconded, Councillor Campbell.
Councillor Campbell, thank you very much indeed. All right, does any member wish to propose an alternative option? I don't think we do we? Therefore, do members agree? Agreed, yes?
Yep. Agreed.
Agreed.
Agreed, Chairman.
Yes, be silent for a moment.
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Excellent, thank you. Right, moving on to agenda item 18. Nomination of members to serve on committees. Not agenda item, what am I talking about? It's agenda item 16.
16, yeah.
Nomination of members to serve on committees. Group leaders may take this opportunity to advise of changes of their nominations to committees, panels and boards for the remainder of the 2020-21 year. Councillor Everett, do you wish to advise of any nominational changes?
Well, I think we need to delete a member from planning, Councillor Savage. I've got to admit that I don't have this item on the public agenda. I'm not quite sure why we've got an item which isn't on the council website, because I'm using the council website to look at it, because it's certainly not a confidential item. I believe that the Labour Group's proposing to take Councillor Patmore off of planning. I'm sure somebody will correct me if I'm wrong on that.
I think in actual fact this is all part of agenda item 15. And okay. I've assumed it has a separate number. It doesn't. It's within agenda item 15. So we're talking about the relinquishment of one of the planning councillors from your side here.
Yes, I think Councillor Patmore has kindly volunteered to fall by the wayside in this occasion, and we're grateful to it.
Okay, lovely. Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Everett. Councillor Game, would you like to come in here?
Yes, we would like to put Councillor Rattigan onto planning.
Thank you very much indeed. And of course, I presume Councillor Rattigan is delighted with the opportunity.
Yes, I hope so, yes.
Councillor Piper, Councillor Reverend Piper, do you wish to advise of any nominational changes?
Thank you, Chairman. No changes.
Thank you very much. Councillor Roper, do you wish to advise of any nominational change? Actually, it should be Councillor Garner here, shouldn't it?
Yes, Councillor Garner, what are we have no changes.
No changes. Thank you very much indeed. Right, members, thank you very much indeed for your time this evening. That includes the business for this meeting of the council. It has been a little bit longer than I thought it would be, but nevertheless, I think we got everything done. I think everyone had an opportunity to comment as they wished. I think we've had a very good meeting. Thank you very much indeed. See you all, if not before, in October. Good night.
Chairman.
Good night.